Hey everybody, JB Benna here today with Jenn Shelton. Thanks for coming to help me out today on the show.
Glad to host.
Yeah, she's coming through Reno, and I got her to stop for 5 minutes so she could charge her cell phone and take care of some stuff. And so we are doing a John Muir Trail episode today. Jenn just completed the John Muir Trail about 3-4 weeks ago.
2 weeks?
2 weeks
3
ago?
weeks?
Okay.
A few weeks.
And then Leor Pantilat just completed the John Muir Trail as well, and we're going to be interviewing him later. But I just wanted to ask Jenn some questions about her experience and why the hell are you so obsessed with the John Muir Trail?
I'm not anymore. It's over.
You got it done.
Chapter closed.
So it was like 4 years. 4 years in a row, right?
In a row. Mm-hmm.
Now tell me, walk me through, like, why did you want to do it in the first place, and then why did you keep going back? And what happened each time?
It's a long story.
Yeah, That's okay.
Okay.
We got time.
I was pacing Badwater with Connie Gardner, and then we climbed Whitney, and we got to the top, and then we climbed down Whitney, and Connie wanted to go, this was 5 years ago, Connie wanted to go off the backside of Whitney to get back to Lone Pine. And I was like, no. And she fought with me all 10 miles down. Just, we should have gone the other way. This way sucks. We should have gone the other way. And then we got back to Lone Pine. We were drinking a beer, and she was asking everyone, what's that other trail? And someone said, it's the John Muir Trail. If you took that, you'd be dead. And Connie was like, we're going to come back and get the record. And so we didn't know how far it was. We didn't know that the record was a beast. We came back the next year and without any knowledge and jumped on the trail. And nearly died about 45 times.
Yeah, didn't you guys like get lost and have to like sleep in a rainstorm or something? Or?
Yeah, it was a snow year, so all the passes were covered in snow, even though it was late August. And in the storm, I didn't bring a jacket. Connie was wearing my jacket, and we had one space blanket, but we got in a fight and ripped it like to shreds. So yeah, it was horrific.
And then you guys got out of that and survived the first year. And did you learn any lessons on that?
Yeah, don't go with Connie, that's for sure. Just kidding. She's tough. The only way we lived is neither of us wanted to be the first to die. So I was glad I was with Connie because she was super tough. She would have died, I would have been 5 minutes later. So.
And then you came back in, was that 2012? And that year you made it to Reds Meadows, right?
Yeah, that was my best year-ish.
But you had some like serious blister problems.
I had maceration, which is like low-grade trench foot. But basically that year, at mile 90, I thought I was 10 miles behind record pace, but I was actually 7 hours ahead of record pace, because that was bad spreadsheet, bad graph or something. And so I pushed.
Darn those spreadsheets, man! They can totally throw you off.
I didn't actually look at the spreadsheet, which was the problem, but. So anyways, that year was a shit show. Hallucinations, crawled for miles. Yeah, made it to Reds though, which is like 160, 170.
Yeah, that's almost there. But then you couldn't even really walk. Your feet were so messed up.
No. And Reds is the crux. If you make it past Reds, to my knowledge, no one's not finished and made it past Reds. Which is kind of awesome because Tuolumne's real easy to drop at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And then the third year you didn't quite make it as far, right? In the third year, where did you drop it?
At Edison.
Lake Edison.
Mm-hmm.
So 30 miles less. What happened that time?
That year was my best year physically. I just had like a bit of emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The mental game. And then finally this year, 2014, you went back with Chrissy and tell me about what happened. How was it out there?
Like every year, it was cursed from the first step. It's over. It's done. It was 4.5 days.
Yeah.
Over. Behind me. Never going back.
So I mean, you've obviously like set out, I mean, I know that you just wanted to finish, but there was obviously some ambitions of breaking the record. Do you think that like you kind of underestimated how difficult that trail was, and can you tell people like why the John Muir Trail is so difficult? Because the numbers, you know, when you look at it, you're like, oh, I should be able to do that in, you know, 72 hours or something like that. And
yeah, well, without rest, you're only averaging 2.5 miles an hour for the record, which is slower than a slow walk. Like if you tried to walk that slow, you probably couldn't walk that slow. So it looks like super, super simple on paper. So I underestimated it probably every year until this year. This year might have been the only year I didn't underestimate it. And it is so hard because, one, the terrain is it's just unforgiving till the end. So you have to save something. And then two, what is two? Oh, I know what it is. When things go bad, they go very bad.
That's true.
They don't, it's not like a little hiccup, whoopsie. It's like catastrophic meltdown. And there's no way out. So you just have to keep letting things snowball into this horrific mess.
Yeah, it's though I mean, if you keep going straight, you know, it's what, 100, 200 miles till you cross the first road. But, you know, on paper, it doesn't look that far. It's maybe 20 miles out if you go east or west, but you're climbing over like 13,000 foot pass, and it's like there's no easy way out of this trail. So it's, you know, dangerous beyond just difficult, and glad that you survived every time and got it done. That's awesome.
Thanks.
How was it this year? Because I know Chrissy's a super tough runner herself. So she had to drop, but how was it to like keep going without her? And I know you also had some, you know, unfortunate news when you were out there. I'm sure that was all very difficult. But
yeah, it was a weird year because we were never in the running for the record, and so there was that mental hurdle. Like, it's a lot easier to like have something within reach. And then we were never in the running because Chrissy, everyone, hey, did you get sick at Badwater? I mean, not Badwater, Hard Rock.
No.
Everyone who was there got sick.
Really?
So Chrissy started it off super sick, like drenched in sweat. So we were just going really slow and never on record pace. So then Chrissy dropped, and that was both a blow because I wanted to finish it with her, but also a relief. Like now it can go my own pace. Like kind of like mixed emotions. Mm-hmm. And then I got the news that my friend died. That was a blow. It was just 4.5 days. It's just nonstop, you know. It just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And so all year I'm like 3.5 days is my goal. Like, I wanted that men's record more than I've ever wanted anything. And at 3.5 days, Scott had picked me up, Jerker, and I had this like complete back spasm. And like you would have thought like I was going into labor, right? I was like, Scott died. And then after we realized that happened exactly at 3 days, 12 hours. I think like all year I had told my body like, just stay strong for 3 days, 12 hours. And then after that time window hit, I was just a sopping mess out there, just stumbling along.
Yeah, but you kept going, you know, got it done. So that's got to be still, what, second fastest female time?
Yeah, but maybe only 2 women have done it. So second place or last place?
Showing up's half the battle. Finishing's even more of the battle. Yeah. So hey, congrats.
Thank you.
That's a super impressive accomplishment, especially like coming back year after year, because that's a crazy trail. But thanks for sharing your story, and congrats on that. And up next we've got Leor, who, you know, just set the record, beat Hal Koerner and Mike Wolfe's time by I think like 5 hours, which was pretty impressive on his first. I don't know. I think it was his first race longer than 60 miles, or first run longer than 60 miles. So it's pretty impressive mentally. What do you think about that? Like,
insane.
Yeah.
Before Hal and Mike got the FKT, no one had finished on their first attempt for an FKT, I think, on the men's side. And then Leor just went and killed it.
Yeah.
And he's like, he put it at that 3-day mark. Someone's gonna get the 3-day mark, but they're gonna pay
Yeah, like
physically
their last
and mentally
race of the year or the career. Yeah. They're like, I'm done.
Become a legend.
Yeah. So we're lucky today to have Leor Pantilat on the show. He just completed the John Muir Trail in a record time of 3 days and 7 hours and 36 minutes.
Yep.
Great. Well, welcome to the show, Leor, and congrats on your amazing run. That was super inspiring.
Thanks.
So I was talking to Joel Lanz, who is your one of your pacers and a running friend here in Reno, and he said that you kind of just made this decision on Monday to go and set the speed record on the 222-mile trail. What prompted that spur of the moment idea?
So I mean, Joel knows I've been thinking about it for a long time, but it was not an easy decision for me to like actually commit to it. Mainly because I don't have any multi-day experience. I don't even have a 100-mile experience. And just reading the accounts of other people who tried the JMT made it seem really intimidating, like they were just completely broken at the end. And I guess I'm just, at some level, scared of that level of suffering and pain that I would have to put my body through. But on the other hand, I've always really been intrigued by the idea of going from Mount Whitney to Yosemite Valley in one aesthetic push. And I've always, I love those mountains. I know them very well. So it's always been something that I wanted to do. You know, I've told Joel about it, but it only took me like a week beforehand to really commit to it. And that was when I saw a good weather forecast, because I knew that I didn't want to have weather part of the equation at all. The last thing I needed was like thunderstorms on top of me while I'm trying to do this. And it's been really bad weather this summer out there. Aside from like Chrissy and Jenn's like 3 days, there's literally been thunderstorms every day in the last 2 months. That pattern finally broke, and that was when I was like, okay, this is my chance. And it's also because my girlfriend is going to graduate school, so she's gonna be busy. So I figured this would be, this is a chance to do it.
So, I mean, what was it like? I mean, it's a huge mindset shift to go from, I mean, you've won and set course records at like the, like Quad Dipsy and, other, short ultras, and you've just been, doing phenomenally at these shorter races. And I know you have a lot of High Sierra experience as well, like the Ray Lakes Loop and like the High Sierra Trail, right? That you've done. Yep. So, though, even at that, those are like 60 miles in length or something like that. To go from 60 to 220, what did you think about that, or what spurred that on? I mean, I know it's an iconic trail, but that's a huge leap for you.
It was, and that's the reason why I was very wishy-washy on it for a long time. That's why it was really tough to commit to it. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it is a huge jump. I mean, I do a lot of like 20-hour stuff in Sierra, but it's not like 80. But on the other hand, it's like you can't really like go out and prepare for a 3.5-day thing by doing a 2.5-day thing. I think that'll just make you really tired. And then, because it's like after doing the JMT, it's not like I'm going to go do another long distance thing in a couple of months. I feel like it's almost like the 20-hour range is probably like good enough in some level. I mean, I suppose it might have even been better if I did some like weekend things to cover the whole weekend, like 2 days, but that just never really appealed to me, I guess. I didn't really want to train specifically for the JMT. I just kind of did my normal adventures and routes that I wanted to do, not like doing things just for the JMT.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think physically you're right. I guess what I was wondering is more of like the mental component of that, because Joel had mentioned that there was and you can maybe talk a little bit about this, a point when you were coming in Evolution Valley or Evolution Basin, and you pretty much were telling him you were done, and he was like, well, you should just eat some food and just keep trying. You're like, no, I'm done. And I think that in the 100 and 200 mile things like that, the mental component of like getting through those like super low points is like maybe something that you can't really train for, but you were able to push through that. Can you tell me like a little bit about that mental component?
Yeah, so I had one or two low points with Joel. The other low point was later on, like mile 140, 150. But Joel's low point was pretty early on, in like, maybe like around mile 70. And that was because I had some GI issues. I don't know whether it was the altitude or something that I ate, but it was causing me to have GI issues and go to the bathroom excessively, and it kind of made me weak. So coming off of Mather Pass, I was feeling really crummy. We took a seat at the outlet of Palisade Lakes, and I was like, Joel, I think I'm like out. I'm going out at Bishop's Pass. You know, I can't. I'm not even halfway there. How am I going to like keep going like this? But it turned out that there was a guy on the trail, like a JMT backpacker who was doing it in 20 days, who handed me some Pepto-Bismol tablets. And so I took a couple of those. And then while I was sitting there moping to Joel, I was like eating a bunch of jerky and cookies. And instead of going straight through me, it actually like stayed in my stomach. And then as we were descending from Palisade Lake, to kind of regain my energy. But you know, I learned that it's really amazing how the human body can go from like both mentally and physically can go from like feeling super crummy to like feeling great in the span of like 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing that you were able to, you know, figure that out, because I think a lot of people like hit that low point when they're new to like the 100, 200 mile runs, and you were able to push through that. So that was amazing. Maybe you could just like, you know, for those of us that were kind of watching on Facebook or, you know, Twitter or whatever, you know, we didn't get all the details. Maybe you could just kind of walk us through your event. What time did you start? You know, give us some splits, where you slept, you know, who was out there crewing you. Just kind of walk us through the experience.
So it started at 7:01 at Whitney Portal, which I felt like was good. I camped at Cottonwood Lake the night before to get some acclimation. It was a beautiful morning. I mean, the hike up Mount Whitney was spectacular. I didn't run any of it, but I still ended up topping out at the summit, maybe a bit fast. And it was like a half an hour faster than Howland Lake. But I felt pretty good at that point. And so, you know, it's like I'm not going to intentionally slow down. But the views were incredible, so that's kind of what made it easier. The descent off Whitney went well. One of the parks that I had not seen before in the JMT was between Wallace Creek and Tyndall Creek, on the Bighorn Plateau there. And that had some really inspiring views of the Kauai Range and the Great Western Divide. And then climb up Forester Pass went well, and down from Forester into Vidette Meadows and up to Kearsarge was where I met Joel, and he was kind of the first person that tasted me. So I had 42 miles by myself, and then I met up with Joel and we headed up to Glen Pass. And that's where I had a sandwich, and I was like, Joel, I feel kind of bloated. And then that kind of continued through the Ray Lake, but, you know, we had sunset through there, so I didn't really think about it. But then on the climb up to Pinchot Pass, which I think is like 3,500 feet, maybe even more, it's really long. I started to feel the GI issues more and more. And by the time we got to the other side of Pinchot Pass, which is where our first sleep was, I was really feeling kind of crummy. I slept at the Bench Lake Junction, and Aaron Sorensen backpacked in from Taboose Pass some quilts and some sandwiches. And then Joel and I continued the next morning. Joel continued all the way to the Bishop Pass Junction. At that junction, I had two guys, Eric Wild and Whit Rambach, who has a lot of experience. Whit also paced Peter Bakewind, former FKT on the JMT. I think he was the first guy under 4 days. So Whit has a ton of experience, and I went with Whit over Muir Pass and into Evolution Valley. And that whole section through there, I was actually feeling really well. The climb up Muir Pass was strong. I ate more food at the Bishop Pass Junction. And Joel was like, so are you continuing or not? Did you make the decision? And I was like, oh, of course. You know, I feel great now. But he was kind of surprised because, you know, just a couple hours earlier seemed pretty dire. But yeah, the climb up Muir Pass went really well. Whit and I ran down through Evolution Valley. It's really a nice gradual downhill all the way, like 20 miles. So we ran most of that. We crossed Evolution Creek just before dark. And then the last few miles were in the dark. We kind of walked. It's a little rugged. And Whit turned off to go back lake. I continued on a couple miles to meet my friend Will Goddard, who wasn't tasting. He just brought in some supplies. So I had a sandwich there. I wanted to sleep. We kind of changed the plan en route. The original plan was to try and get all the way to Silver Pass to sleep. But it was already 11 o'clock, so I wanted to sleep where Will was. But I didn't have any sleeping bag or anything, so it proved impossible to sleep. I was kind of shivering. So then I just got up and went. But the resupply and the sandwich and the fruit that Will gave me kind of re-energized me for the climb up Selden Pass, which is 3,500 feet, and that one went really well. I felt strong. But then on the other side of Selden Pass, my headlamp started to dim. I was like, what? These are lithium batteries. These are supposed to last like at least a night. So the headlamp started dimming, and then I had to use the E-light to navigate from 3 a.m. to 5:40 a.m. when it was light out. So unfortunately, the moon was still decent, but it was kind of tricky at times on the granite to locate the trail. But I made it all right, and then it got light. Went up Bear Ridge, which is, it's not really a pass that people know about, but it's still a 1,000-foot climb. And at that stage, you feel any 1,000-foot climb. So I got to the top of Bear Ridge, and there I met David Frank, who ran with me down into the Mono Creek, Edison Lake area. And then from there, we trudged up Silver Pass. And at the top of Silver Pass, I was just really, really tired, probably because of the lack of sleep the night before. So we met another resupplier, Kyle Peter, and he had a bunch of stuff. He had a bivvy and a quilt that he'd carry all the way to Silver Pass from Duck Lake, which is kind of a long ways. And I was able to take a nap there for like 45 minutes. And it was already really hot. It was like midday. And I just remember getting up, and because I was like underneath this little bivvy stack, it was hot, and all of like the salt and sunscreen got into my eyes. So it took like 10 minutes for my eyes to like actually open after that little nap, because they were just covered in salt and sweat. It was pretty awful. I was like, man, I feel crummy. My eyes are shot, and my legs feel awful. Silver Pass was really tough. Kyle Peter he has an adventure racing background, so he knows all about low points and fighting through them, and we just kept moving. And honestly, like, we weren't moving fast for the next 10 miles, you know, dropping down Silver Pass and then up to Tully Hole, which is kind of a steeper climb, and it was midday, so it was peak heat. And then all those little ups and downs on the way to the Duck Pass Junction, like, all of that was probably like 2 miles an hour. And I think the important part that, like, Kyle kept repeating is that we're still moving, and you're still, like, climbing decently. You're still going up these hills 2 miles an hour. It's not the end of the world. And then at the Duck Lake Junction, Kyle gave me, like, one of these Epic bars, which I'd never tried before, a bison one, and some Red Bull, and a chewy granola. And then the last 10 miles into Reds Meadow, I probably ran a 10-minute pace. So I went from going, like, 2 miles an hour for 10 miles to, like, 6 miles an hour for the last 10 miles. So it's definitely, like, a huge turnaround. And Kyle was, like, really, like, impressed. He was like, wow. And, people turn around, but it's usually not that much. But I really came to like those bison bars because they're, like, moist and chewy, so they really go down easily. And because I was still trying to eat the jerky, and it's like I was just chewing and not really eating.
So Tim also needs to send you a box of that. Say thanks for trying it on the JMT.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, send him a box.
Yeah, they were awesome. So at Reds Meadow, I came into Reds Meadow, and then at that point there was like no doubt that I was going to continue on, even though for like 5 hours between Silver Pass and Duck Lake, I was already like, oh, I'll just finish at Reds Meadow. It's okay, I got a crew there, I got food waiting for me. But by the time I got to Reds Meadow, I was feeling better, and, I got there at 6:15, it wasn't even that late. So then I was like, wow, we have to continue now. And then so at Reds Meadow, Joel was there, and Whit was there, and Erica was there, and David was there, so everybody was kind of there. And they gave me some chicken soup and tuna, and I was able to eat all that stuff, I think because it was, lower elevation there. So I got a really good meal in, and then I was able to sleep probably for like 4 hours. And then they got me up at about 11:30, and by 11:45, 11:50, I was off with Eric Wild, who was the next person to pace me. And he did a phenomenal job. I think, I wasn't sure what time Hal and Mike had left Red's Meadow, and I hadn't paid attention to their splits at all until that point. But I knew, I had heard from one of the crew people, that they left around 12:15. So I figured, I'm like a half an hour ahead of them at this point. So I knew I had to be really focused and like really determined, right? Because those guys are amazing athletes. And it's like, to be able to maintain that half an hour lead, I've got to really stay on my game, really focus on hydrating and nutrition, and keep that at least 3 miles an hour for like any mile. So Eric, my pacer, did a great job of actually taking me through Donahue Pass at an even faster rate. I think it was more like 4 miles an hour. And then I was really focused, and even though, it was all middle of the night, I knew all the terrain at this point. There was no surprises in the trail. I knew all the little climbs, between Shadow Lake and Garnett Lake, between Garnett and Thousand Islands. People don't realize that there are, little climbs throughout, but I knew about all of them, so that was really helpful mentally to know. And then we arrived at Donahue Pass just as the sun was rising, and there was some nice cirrus clouds. So it was a really spectacular sunrise, which was also inspirational. So at Donahue Pass, I think I was, in my mind at least, I'm not sure when Hal and Mike actually were at the summit, but in my mind I thought they got to the Donahue Pass at 7:15, and I was there around 6:20. So, like, to me, I was like, that's like actually increased the buffer a little bit. And my whole goal was to run Lyle Canyon, which is very runnable. And I knew that I had, I was feeling good and my leg strength was there. So I saw Jeff Kozak about 2 minutes on the north side of Donahue Pass. And then we continued down the kind of technical part. And Jeff was, really fast, but I was really happy that I was able to kind of keep up with that pace, having already done 180, 190 miles. And then once we got to the Lyle Canyon floor, I knew that, I was feeling really good, felt strong, and I felt, really focused and determined. So I was able to put together, 8, 9 miles of 10, 11-minute pace all the way to Tuolumne Meadows. And at Cathedral...
I actually woke up on, was that Sunday morning or Monday morning, and I saw you at Donahue, and I think it was like about 6:30 that your spot came through, and I looked, and Hal and Mike actually went through there at 8:40, so you were almost like 2 hours ahead of him at that time. But I hesitated for like 2 hours because I was going to drive down and see you finish, and then I looked again at I think 10 a.m. or 9:30, and you were already to Tuolumne, so you ran like 17 or 18 miles in like 3 hours, which is like 10-minute pace. I was like, holy crap, I'm gonna maybe miss him, and I did end up missing you by 20 minutes, but you were moving pretty good through there.
I think I moved pretty good the whole day. Those last 60 miles have pretty much put together a really nice finish. Because even after that, I took maybe a 20-minute break at Tuolumne Meadows Cathedral Lakes Junction. But Jeff Kozak, he kept going with me up through sunrise. At the end, I still had leg strength and was still feeling good, so I could run a lot of the way down into Yosemite Valley. So I think, I had ups and downs, which a lot of them were probably novice type mistakes that happened on the first few days. But when, I kind of put myself in a position on the last day to open it up and, really start running, and it worked out that I was able to finish really strong. In my mind, I had Hal and Mike at Donahue Pass at 7:15, but maybe it was better. I thought that made me go faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what did it feel like when you arrived at the finish? I mean, I'm sure you were exhausted, but what were you thinking was going through your mind?
My moment of ecstaticness was actually 7 miles from the finish, where I was like, damn, I've really done it. I've gotten through the low points, and I had a phenomenal last day. But when I finished, it was just kind of hot. It was 2:30 in Yosemite Valley. And it's the real moment where I realized that I was going to do it was kind of 7 miles from the finish at the Clouds Rest Junction.
So how does this stack up compared to your other, accomplishments? You've accomplished a lot, but what does this feel like?
It's probably my biggest personal accomplishment so far. But I don't know. Just because it's longer doesn't necessarily make it bigger. I've also I've enjoyed some of my other FKT things that I've done. They're all kind of different, so I don't know if I'd rank them. The JMT is pretty special simply because I feel like it's a really beautiful aesthetic route, that goes from Whitney to Yosemite Valley. So regardless of a record or time or anything, I feel like it's something that's really cool to just do and see the Sierra in one flow.
You look at the miles of the JMT, and a lot of people, I think, kind of, even Hal and Mike, when they were first looking at doing the time, they were like, oh, we should be able to do this in under 3 days, no problem. You look at the miles, and you look at the elevation, and it doesn't seem like it should take you, 80 hours or something to do it. Can you just explain why, to people that don't know, why it's so difficult?
So I think one word, rock. There's a lot of rock, especially in the first half. The first half is maybe 80% really rocky trail, and it's not the rocks are not placed in a way that's conducive to running. There's water bars, really shaped rocks, and it's not like downhills you can really hammer. They're not soft and flush. It's very rocky. And there's also a lot of elevation gain. The passes themselves, but there's also little humps in between that people don't really think about. So there's the cumulative elevation gain. There's the fact that the trail is extremely rugged. A lot of the passes are high altitude, 12,000 feet or higher. So it's really rugged out there, and it's not your Western States trail,
Yeah, definitely. And I think people kind of underestimate that.
I think 72-hour time on the JMT is very feasible. It would take a special performance.
Yeah, definitely.
And not really many races. I want to keep doing the adventures, keep playing in the mountains, seeking the wild and rugged places. Is kind of where I derive the most enjoyment and where I'm the most passionate about. I'll probably do a few races here and there, but I feel like I've kind of seen that most of that scene. And, I'm always looking to explore new things and not kind of redo the same races over and over again.
Great. Well, thanks again for coming on, and congrats, and look forward to seeing what comes next. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Jen, I hope you're paying attention to all that stuff that Leor just said. So next time you can go out 3 days. I think you can do it.
I'm not going back.
You can. You will.
I can and I won't.
The bug will get you. It's only been 2 weeks. Give it 3 more weeks. It takes longer for the bug to come around on these really difficult things. I'm sure that after your last few attempts, you said you weren't going back.
I had PTSD.
On the previous ones?
Yeah, this one just minor. The other one's huge.
Yeah.
Wonder if Leor's having it right now.
Probably helps a little bit when you actually break the record.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that was cool.
Less dramatic.
Yeah. You get a little more reward than just showing up at Happy Isles with a bunch of tourists looking at you like you're insane. Like, what is wrong with this person?
Oh.
So anyway, well, congrats, and I will see you back out there next year for the women's record. I'll crew you.
Are you going for the women's record?
I might, yeah. Women's record coming up next. JB Benna.
I'm crewing him.
Yeah. No, I'm going unsupported women's record. No one's ever done that, so I can get it. I think I got it.
Perfect.
Just have to carry all my own gear.
Can you eat a burger at Red's?
Unsupported?
Mm-hmm.
No.
You can't? Mm-hmm. I think you can.
Well, we'll have to ask Buzz about that.
Okay.
You're supposed to carry all your own food, but I think if
there's a burger joint.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If the amenity's there, can you stop? Buzz,
yeah.
Buzz and Peter, we need to ask you this question. Can we get a burger at Red's if it's unsupported?
Let's not ask Buzz. I say yes. I've done it 4 times.
Jen says yes. Okay, so as long as I say beforehand, I'm going to tell everybody, hey, I'm going for the unsupported record, and I'm going to get a burger at Red's.
Because you're going to get water from a stream.
You could get food at Tuolumne too.
You just get it yourself.
But they say natural sources. I guess if I killed a deer and ate a deer burger, maybe.
It's basically a natural at this point.
Natural source. Yeah, the Red's Meadows burger is a lot more natural than like a McDonald's or something. So I'll buy that.
Yeah, eat your burger.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Unsupported now includes burgers at Red's Meadows.
And Tuolumne.
All right. Well, to the record next year, and thanks for joining us today on TraiLive, and thanks to Jenn for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be the worst episode ever. Thanks, Jenn, for ruining the show.
Did you want me to pound the goo?
Yeah.
It'll probably be the healthiest thing I've eaten this week.
Oh, that was gross. No water.
I hate goos.
No, it's not a goo. It's a generic energy gel. We don't have any sponsors. How's that? Now you don't need lunch.
Thanks a lot.
Take that for the road.